if you can just go ahead and type in that chat box. On the left-hand side of your screen, you should see a chat icon. And if you can go ahead, open that up and type that you can hear me in there, that does a couple things for me. One, it lets me know that you can indeed hear me and my mic is working. The second thing that it lets me know is that you know where you can ask questions during this webinar so that you're really getting the most out of your time this morning, and we can really work on building your 2020 goals. I'm really excited about this webinar this morning. I love talking about goals. And as we really start to head towards the holiday season, it's a nice time because typically things are a little bit more quiet around that holiday season, so we can really take some time to reflect on our business and what we need to do. So good morning, Derek, Andrew, Patricia, Faye, Teresa, Stephanie. I'm super excited that you're here. I do want to make sure, Lisa, Tori, Carol, can you all hear me as well? And as we get started, know that this session on goals is going to be recorded. We're going to talk about where in IQ Office you can set your goals and how you can use the goal setting tool to really keep yourself on track. Before we go into that, I do want to just touch on a few reasons why you would set goals. So before we go all the way in, how many of you take time every year to sit down and set a couple financial goals, a couple family goals, and a couple community goals for yourself at the start of every year or before the year starts? How many of you take time to actually write down your goals and map out really what you're looking to accomplish in the next year? Awesome. Perfect. So a lot of you do, some of you don't. I am going to just type quick to one gal on that webinar can't hear. Awesome. Teresa, I know that you all do a lot of goal setting with your agents, but what about for you personally? Are you doing that as well? And how many of you then go back and you quarterly check in on your goals? So you not only take the time to set your goals, but at least once a quarter, you're going back and saying, okay, this is where I'm at in my goals. This is what I need to do. This is where I'm building, and this is where I'm lacking. So how many of you really set the check-in points for your goals? Because I think that that is also a really important part of goal setting, is also goal tracking. Awesome, Andrew. Andrew says he does it monthly and quarterly for those of you that aren't looking in the chat box. And I think that that consistency is really the important part of our business. So keep just a few things in mind when you are setting your goals. As you set goals, goals really do trigger behavior. And they really are a way for you to say, okay, if I want to do this, then I need to do this. So it's important to have a visual of where you're going. Think of it as a roadmap. They also guide your focus. So as you're setting your goals and as you're tracking your goals, it is easier to focus and really drill down to what you're doing daily to impact your goals. If you're writing the big picture down, it's easier to say, hey, here's my big picture. And so in order to maintain my big picture, these are the little things I have to do to lead up to that. They also sustain the momentum. So how many of you have had an off day where you're thinking, today I'm just not feeling it. I don't want to make those calls. That follow-up piece is really hard. I would rather go home and spend time reading a book than going out to my community event. And by setting your goals and having that big picture view, it really helps you sustain the momentum of your goals. They also align that focus. So you can track, and when I say checking in quarterly or monthly, they can help you track where you're going. Because if you're not saying, hey, this is where I need to go, it's really hard to measure if you're getting anything done. I know we talk a lot in our marketing webinars and in our marketing plans that tracking our marketing behavior and our return on investment is important. The same is true with all your activities. is there a return for what I'm investing? And time, in my mind, is the most expensive investment. And it also helps you track your self-mastery. So it helps you really build and become the agent, the person, the community member that you want to be, because you can become very efficient at what you're doing. So those are the things I want you to keep in mind. As we go through our goal setting, we're going to set our financial goals in IQ Office. But then I also want you to keep in mind this statistic. It takes 7 follow-ups with each client before they are going to respond to you. So as you're saying, hey, I want to make this amount of money, I want to make $50,000 a year this year, or $70,000 or $100,000, whatever that number is for you personally, know that for every person you're talking to about your business, to grow your business, you're going to have to talk to them 7 times before they're going to either set the appointment with you or say, hey, it's not going to happen this year. We need to move on to the next portion of it. We're going to talk about how to set that up. We're also going to set up our follow-ups in our IQ Office today. So without further ado, to reach your goals tool in IQ Office, you're going to click on your name in the upper right-hand corner, and you're going to go to your profile. When you go to your profile, there is a tab at the top that says goals. And here is where you can go in and you can say, I'm going to set my 2020 goals. I know what my living expenses are. So how many of you in a year go through at the end of the year and you track what your monthly expenses are for you and your family? Because that's the first part of financial goal setting, is knowing how much you spend. Cool. For those of you who don't do it, that is going to be step 1. Step 1 is going to be going in and let's see if I can get my whiteboard up. Sorry, I know I have a whiteboard in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to set our financial goal, or track our monthly expenses. I'm going to share this with you. Track our monthly expenses, or calculate them and convert them to annual. The second thing we're going to do is we are going to calculate our annual business expenses. How many of you are doing that currently? So you have 2 different columns. One is your monthly living expenses. The other one is your annual business expenses. Cool. A few of you are, and that is awesome. If you're not doing it, that's where you're going to start. You're going to type your living expenses into this box. So let's say your annual living expenses are $24,000. I am just making these numbers up as I go, just so you all know. For your commission earnings, this is what you're going to want to earn after your living expenses come out. So what do you want to take to the bank in a year? Let's say you want to take, let's call it 45,000. So what you want to have is disposable income. that is going into savings, it's going into fun, that's what you're taking to the bank that is not a living expense. Then you're going to take your commissions earnings and you're going to add your annual business expense into that number. You're also going to add your living expenses into that number. So you're going to add your living expense of $24,000 into the $45,000. And how much approximately do you all think you spend on your business in a year? If you had to guess, as you're sitting here guessing and you're thinking about your dues and your education and your marketing plan and all your business cards and your signs and your open houses and all of that, what's a roundabout number that y'all think you're spending? Awesome. So this number is going to be different for everyone. Know that as you're sharing this is totally across the board. Hey, some people spend a lot. They've got a big book. They've got a lot going on. And your marketplace is also going to dictate this. So let's say we spend about, let's call it $12,000 on our business. That means our total commission earnings for this example need to be $81,000. Is everybody with me so far? Cool. Then you're going to put in the average sales price for your market. So if you are working and you're in Las Vegas or Telluride or Miami or Detroit, those prices are going to vary a lot. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the MLS. You're going to say, hey, the average price in my market right now today is this. You also should be able to look and see the average price for the year was this. You're going to put that average price in. And then you're going to say the average commission rate, which you also should be able to pull from a report from your MLS, is 2.5%. These numbers are fairly straightforward, black and white, easy to get numbers. The next number we're going to talk about is this listing sold as a percent of your sales. So when you look at your personal sales, so like when Andrew looks at his sales and his book of business, if he made 60 sales last year, what is the percent of those that came from the listings that you sold that were your listings? Was it 50%? Was it 60%? Was it 70% of your business? For some of you, that number might be, because you might be more of a buyer's agent, that's okay. This number might only be, hey, 30% of my business comes from listings. And I know that year over year, I'm going to try and get it to 35 this year. And then how many new listings do you take and close? So for every listing that you have, is it going to sell? So if you take 10 listings, are you selling 8 of them? Are you selling 5 of them? Are you selling 3 of them? What is that close rate? Hopefully you're selling, 75% of the listings you take are also closing. That doesn't mean that you're the selling or that you're representing the buyer as well. This is, I take a listing and 75% of the time it closes. Then when you get down to buyers sold and closed as a percent of your total sales, if you take 100 and you subtract the amount that come from your listings, that is the percentage that should be your buyers. So for this example, it's going to be 65%. And how many of those buyers fall out of contract? Are most of them closing? Are most of them not closing? Let's say 20% of them fall out of contract. Once you put all those numbers in, you're going to click the recalculate button. And it is going to then fill in these gray boxes. So I need to sell 12 homes. 4 of those need to be listings. I need to take 6 new listings. I need to close 8 buyers, and I need to have 10 buyers working at all time because 20% of them are going to fall out. Stephanie, that's a great question. So are we working on the current year, or is now the projection for 2020? So up here in the right-hand corner, this is for your 2020. Our goal is to set this for next year. So you're taking the time over the next few months to really figure out your costs, figure out your expenses. What do you need to, what are all these numbers you need to punch in? And then you're saving it for your 2020. Does that answer your question, Stephanie? Let me get with you offline on that, Stephanie. So it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do. So if I need to sell 12 homes, either on the buy side or on the sell side, 12 a year, and I know that to get an appointment for a listing, I need to contact someone 8 times. Average, it says 7 times before they respond. I'm going to schedule 8 because then I know for sure before someone's going to do anything. Most salespeople, by the way, give up after the 2nd time of contact with either a no response back or a no. And these do not all have to be phone calls. So I want to talk about how we can now go into a contact and we can set up our follow-up plan. I want you to think about really look at the days on market in your particular market. How long, what's the average days on market in your marketplace right now? If you all can just type that in the box. And these numbers that we're talking about, hey, what's the average commission rate? What's the average price? What's the average days on market? These are really good things to have at the top of your mind. So 35 days, that's awesome, Jeremiah. We're at about, I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We're at about 45 or 50 days is average days on market, depending on what city you're in up here. So you need to be thinking about what is happening prior to that 35 days. So if you have a short time on market, if your average time on market is 35 days, what you're doing today is going to affect the appointments you have in 35 days. Some of us are in different markets where the average time on market is closer to 90 days. So if you're in a market where the average days on market is 90, what you're doing today affects what appointments you have 90 days from now. So as you're scheduling what you need to do, think about that time to close. Does that make sense to everybody? Awesome. So there's 2 ways you can follow up and set your follow-up for your clients. The first way is you go into your contacts and leads and you're manually assigning it for each contact. So I'm going in, I'm just going to sort by everybody here real quick. And I'm opening a contact and I'm clicking the schedule follow-up button here on my home screen, on my edit screen, or I'm going into the actions tab and I'm clicking plus new and I'm saying, hey, I want a follow-up request on this day. It is my first follow-up for appointment. And I want that to be due today. Now, if I'm in a market that has 35 days, I can see here no plan pending. If my market is 35 days, I am going to be much more aggressive in how I follow up with this person because I only have 35 days to get an appointment. So I'm going to follow up with them every other day. So I'm going to follow up with them today. I'm going to follow up with them on Wednesday. This is my second follow-up. I'm going to follow up with them on Friday. And maybe this is an automatic email that goes out, or if I'm just going to say, hey, I'm going to send an email, open house email. This is my third follow-up. And I'm going to click save. So I'm going to do that. If I'm manually assigning these follow-ups, I'm going to do that for my 7 follow-ups for every client. Now, some of you on the line are thinking, perfect, it's individual, I can customize it by date, and I know what's going to happen, and I can do that. That makes the most sense to me. Some of you on the call today are thinking, that is a royal pain to have to individually assign every follow-up I want to do for 7. Can't I just go in and say, I want to follow up with this person. Once it's completed, repeat the action? The answer to that is yes. It's a different process than what I'm showing you right now. For those of you that want an action plan, a plan of when you need to follow up that's interval based, you're going to go into tools and you're going to go into my action plan. And this is what I would do is I would say, okay, I'm going to create a 7-point contact follow-up plan. I'm going to click plus new, and I'm going to call this my 7-point appointment plan. And it's going to apply to people, so contacts and leads, and I'm going to click save. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to schedule a follow-up request based on my market. So if my market average is 50 days, that means I've got just under 2 months to do 7 follow-ups for an appointment. I'm going to call this I'm going to say, okay, this is these are my phone call follow-ups that I'm going to schedule. And I'm going to say, I'm going to make, of those 7, I'm going to make 5 phone call follow-up series. I would like it to be due immediately. So that means as soon as I put someone on this action plan, there's an action that's due. Or I might say, hey, I want it to start the day after I add them to the action plan. I do not want to put myself on the blacklist if it's overdue, and I do want to repeat it. If I'm in a marketplace that it's 50 days, I probably want to contact them every 4 days, and I want to repeat this 5 times because I named it in the description 5 phone call follow-up series, and then I click save. It's going to save that action. It's only going to show it on here once, but once I complete day 1, it's going to automatically assign the next phone call follow-up. Now, if I want to add automatic emails to this, I can. I can go in, I can say, okay, I want an automatic system email to go out. This might be like a weekly check-in email. The subject is, wanted to check in. I want it to be due. I'm going to call the first day, and then I'm not going to call again for 4 days. So maybe I want this to go out on the 3rd day. Do I want it to repeat? Yes. I want to repeat it after 4 days, and I want to repeat it 3 times. It's going to send from me, the owner of the lead, to the contact. I also want a copy of it, and then I'm going to search for my content here. I go in, it pulls up all my content. I have a check-in email in here that I select and I add to it. And then I click save. So now I've got a phone call follow-up request that I'm going to repeat 5 times. I've got a weekly check-in email that's going to go out 3 times for me automatically every 4 days. And I can click save. When I do this weekly check-in email, and right here where I'm pulling the content and searching, this content screen right here is populating from your Marketing My Saved Content screen. So you'd go in, you'd create that letter that said, hey, contact name, super excited that it's been about a week. I've given you a call. Just want to check in, see how things are going. To see a list of open houses that are happening this week, go ahead and check out this link to my website. Hopefully you'll be able to pop by and see me. If you have any questions, So you can build all that content out within here. And that's where that is pulling from. So in my action plans, this email that I browsed for here is pulling from there. I also can attach a file. So if you have a checklist that you want to send out a couple times, if you have something you want to attach, you can upload a file here underneath upload a file. Once I've created that plan, so right now I've got 7 points in it, maybe I want to just add at the end of my follow-up. So if you're a 35-day planner or days on market, you know kind of what the follow-up looks like. If you're 50 days, it's going to look very similar. If it's a 90 days, you can space those out a little bit more. And maybe at the end of that, you want to just put them onto a campaign. And this is going to be like a drip auto connect. I want them to go onto that campaign. And when I choose this due after days, I'm going to choose the days on market, because after I've contacted them 7 times in 35 days, I'm going to say, hey, I want to keep in touch with them, but I don't necessarily need to be aggressively contacting them. I can go in, I can say, hey, this is going to go into my all contact email campaign, and click save. And now they're getting an automatic email from me. That's great. And then maybe after that 35-day time frame, I want to have a follow-up request that is just a monthly checkpoint. I want that to be due. Again, you're going to put your days on market. So after 35 days, I want to repeat it. I want to repeat it every month, or maybe you want to do it bi-weekly. Every other week, I want to contact them, and I want to do that for at least 20 times. So now I've got my full plan made, right? My full plan. This is my plan for all of my people for 2020, my 7-point appointment plan. And I can go back into a contact. I can say, okay, I want to attach that. I'm going to go into my actions. I'm going to add an action plan. And here it is, my 7-point appointment plan. Save. When you're doing this, I know you are all going to be super zealous today to go through and say, hey, I'm going to attach my plan to all my people. It is only, depending on how much time you have, on average, a person can make between 10 and 15 phone calls in an hour. So think about what your time frame is for calling in a day. If you only have an hour, you want to add 10 to 15 people a day to that action plan. If you have 2 hours a day, you're going to add between 25 and 30 people to that action plan. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to add Debbie, actions. Here it is. Awesome. Save. On my main page, I can go next. Okay, I already added Kelsey. Perfect. That's 2. I'm going to add Marco. Here it is. Save. Super slick. And I'm going to click through. If they don't have an action plan on them, that action plan ad is going to be on the main screen. 7-point appointment plan. Save. Depending on how many contacts you have, you're adding 10 to 15, max of 30 a day to a plan. So if you have 400 contacts, it's going to take you about 8 to 12 days to add everybody to an action plan. Now, you're starting now for a reason, because 8 to 12 days sounds like a lot. Oh, I'm adding 8 to 12 people a day. I'm not going to get through all that. Oh my gosh. Between now and the end of the year, you should be able to go through and add all your people to an action plan follow-up, or schedule at least 4 follow-ups with a person. Everybody feel good so far? Any questions as we're going? There's one more piece to this before we're done today. We're about 30 minutes in. I promise I will have you done by 20 to 9 Pacific time. Any questions at all? If you don't have any questions, push no, put no in the chat box. Then I know. N or no, like, hey, we're good to go. Perfect. Then I know you're all still with me as well. And you haven't just glazed over and you're super overwhelmed. The last thing I want you to do, because in order for your goals to work, you have to check in. And some of you are doing a very good job checking in with your goals. Minimum of once a quarter, you're going to check in on yourself. So you're going to go into tools and preferences, and you're going to go to your to-do/calendar. When you go to your to-do/calendar, it's going to show you everything that's happening, but we're going to add an event. We're going to put it on your default event. The subject is going to be quarterly goals check-in. Now, this could be monthly. If you want to do this monthly, awesome. Subject, monthly goals check-in. And you're going to put the start date and time. So, hey, my quarterly, I'm going to start this on March 2nd. I'm going to look at my goals from 8 to 8:30. Make sure you choose the end date as at later date than your start date, or you're going to get an error. You can put in the details. What are you checking in on? How many appointments have you set? So this is what you want to include. 1, how many appointments are set from follow-up? How many listings have you taken? How many referrals have you placed? How accountable are you being? So if you are setting yourself to contact 10 people a day, what I mean by how accountable is, are you following through on the legwork it takes to get to your goal so that you know how many you're following up with? You need to sell 12 homes. That means that you need to be talking to a minimum of 12 people all the time. A better ratio to think about is the 80-20 rule. So when I say that, I mean, hey, 20% of your business, you have 100% of the people you talk to. 20% of those are going to be in a place where they can buy. So to get to 12, that means that you're speaking to a lot more people. You're speaking to closer to 30 people at a time. 40 people at a time. So how accountable are you? Are you making your calls? Are you working 40 people a month? Are you working 50 people a month? Are you really working to get to your goal? And are you doing a minimum of 4 follow-ups with each person? And then 5, do you need to make adjustments? In your plan. So not do you need to make adjustments in your goals? Do you need to make adjustments in your plan? Are you not scheduling out time to prospect? Do you need to change your strategy with your open houses? Do you need to start door knocking? Perhaps you want to go sit in new construction, but what in your plan needs to shift so that you can do better at setting your goals? And all of you, that's going to look very different, because Stephanie's sphere of influence and her list of people she's contacting to is going to be very different than Sheila and her contact list and her people she's talking to. That's just the nature of the business. Some of us are great open houses, and that's where the majority of our business comes from, and that's what we love. Some of us are great cold callers, and that's where the majority of our business comes from, and that's what we love. So you have to find your niche, but you also need to make sure that that niche has a return on your investment and that it's leading to your goals. It's the staircase to your goals, and you're adjusting it minimum of quarterly. So then what we're going to do is we're actually going to set the recurring over here. Hey, I want this to happen monthly on a day, monthly on a weekday, monthly on Mondays, I want this to happen. And I want to be reminded by text the day before. Next, review. This is going to happen. I want this to be end by date, and it's going to end on December 31st, 2020. Oh, recurrence, the first day of every 1 month, the first weekday. Next, you'll click save. And you're good to go. It's going to add to your calendar. Here it is. Finish. Awesome. It's going to add, hey, first weekday of every month. Now that is also on my calendar. It's going to populate on your to-do gauge as an event as it comes up. Any questions for me? I told you we'd be done by 20 to the hour. We're about 2 minutes away from that. I'm going to include a couple lists in the email that you get, the email recap that you get from me today. It'll have links to the videos. It'll have links to next week's training. I'll also put some documents in there for what to track, how many follow-ups you need to do, what some of those example letters look like. You're also able to find those on our, I'll post them on our Facebook page. If you aren't a member of our Facebook page, this is what it looks like. I'm going to put that link into the chat box right now. So you have that. So those documents will go out to the Facebook page. They'll also go out in an email for you as well. In the email, it will be a link to a PDF, just because of the way I have to send those out. And you will also get a copy of this recording. I hope you all have a successful week. I highly encourage you setting aside some time for yourself in the next week to set your goals, and then scheduling a time with your manager in the next 3 weeks to really go through your goals and have an accountability partner for what your goals are and if they make sense. That's what your managers are there for. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you all soon.